Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, comrades and friends, the United States government is officially groveling on their hands and knees, begging the United States citizens to bail them out, right? Our tax money isn't good enough, right? We need more money. So that way we can not have universal health care, not have universal child care, right? We can have crumbling architecture. We can still have homelessness, and we can still have hunger in the United States. And so what is going on here? Well, the U.S. Treasury Department is now officially accepting Venmo and PayPal payments from those who want to donate money to reduce the nation's $36.7 trillion debt. How insane is that? The United States government, ladies and gentlemen, is a Ponzi scheme, and now they have to beg even more to try to, pay off this debt, right? And now it's probably a good idea, because I'm sure there's probably some suckers who are actually going to try to pay down some of this debt, which I just find insane. It's like, how about you just pay some money to try to get in normal politicians who don't want to screw over the American people? As much as I don't like money in campaigns, that would probably make a little bit more sense. And so I don't really think too many people are probably going to donate to this. But what I am saying is, I think it's indicative of a very, very deep problem, which is the United States government is essentially a Ponzi scheme, except you can't call it a Ponzi scheme because it's a government, and the government can do whatever they want. Because whatever they do is, well, I guess it's not legal, but they can get away with it, right? And so with that said, why is the United States government a Ponzi scheme? Well, you can imagine this, right? Every single year, the United States government is collecting money from its taxpayers, right? None of us are happy on tax day. In some countries, actually, and I'm not going to say it's maybe the most special day out there, but in a lot of countries, right, tax day isn't necessarily a bad day. You're happy with where your tax money's going, right? You get universal health care, you get the universal child care, right? You get good roads, you get good schools, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so when you have to pay a little bit more in taxes, you're not necessarily too aggrieved by doing so. Whereas in the United States, we pay a shit ton in taxes, and then what happens? It's not enough. Okay, so, how does the United States government get their money? Well, they're going to issue bonds, right? They're going to sell bonds to other individuals who are going to pay them money, right? So, I'm the government, I give you a bond, right? And now it's a promissory note. They're basically saying, hey, look, I'm going to give you a percent of interest in exchange for the money that you're giving me now, right? So I'll pay you back even more, right? Well, what's the problem with that? Well, the United States government has to keep printing more money and selling more bonds, right, to different investors, or even those same investors, to pay back the interest on those old bonds, right? So you can see it's literally a Ponzi scheme, right? But if you say that, people look at you and act like you're crazy, right? They look at you and act like you're nuts, right? And then, and two, you also say the idea that, like, well, money ain't real and all that, right? I used to look at those people and say, like, they were crazy, right? Or people said the United States government's a Ponzi scheme, like, I thought, no, you're crazy. I'm like, how could that be the case, that the government's so poorly mismanaged? And so when I actually do the research on this, it's absolutely terrifying. And, one of the things that I think was most indicative of this, and nobody really paid attention to it, but I felt like it was really the canary in the coal mine. I mean, there's been lots of canaries in the coal mine. People have been pointing this out since like the 1970s. And so, but one of the biggest canaries in the coal mine for me anyways, is somebody, who's relatively young and, trying to get into politics and understand the world around me, and, at an academic level, at a practical level, was during the COVID-19 pandemic, where every single citizen over the age of 16 would have been given about $35,000 in cash for the amount of money that we spent in those years. But we didn't get anything like that, right? Instead, we got the little stimulus check, and everybody always acts like that's the cause of all of our problems. Like, oh my God, the stimulus check is the cause of all our problems. Like, no, dude, it's not the cause of all our problems. There was so many more countries that gave so much more to their citizens. Instead, where did ours go? It went to the big business, right? It went to the banking institutions, financial institutions, right? Those are the people who are the real beneficiaries of it all, and that's a big problem. And so the citizens really need to wake up here. To me, this is kind of insulting, right? Because why are you taking, a third of my paycheck, even up to half of my paycheck, just because, you don't know how to, and you can't even manage my funds right? What are you doing with it, right? I think people should be aggrieved. And so I'm curious to see what you have to say, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, with respects to this policy. Do you actually support it? Do you not support it? Yeah, I'm sure it's a fine thing, right? But I think it's horrible that it had to get to this point. And so it's really indicative of a bigger problem. But with that said, ladies and gentlemen, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button. It helps out the algorithm here. Try to get us to 300 subscribers on our channel. And we'll talk to you later, ladies and gentlemen.